what do you think the most important thing that can come out of COP26 is?
A plan. I think governments need to move from words to action, and we need to understand how they're going to achieve their ambitions.
Well, welcome to an electric Uber, Richard.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's really exciting to be here. Hitachi's been involved in a programme called Optimise Prime now for a couple of years. It's an innovation programme with working alongside UK Power Networks, SSEN, Royal Mail, Centrica, and then of course Uber.
Yeah.
And we've spent a couple of years just trying to understand the impact of electrification on fleets, and trying to analyse the data and think about, as we electrify, what are the impacts going to be on the electricity network, and what are the barriers for adoption.
I think that this work has been a really useful way into understanding what does it look like when everyone starts to go electric. How does that change the way our networks work? How does that change the way our city work? How do we understand the movement of a big population of people around cities? It's a complicated problem, but I think it's a really important one.
For an Uber driver, you know, charging might be perceived as downtime when they're not earning revenue. So we need to understand where the best places are to put charging infrastructure. But we also need to bear in mind that the electricity network hasn't got infinite capacity, so there needs to be some careful planning.
I think it was a couple of things. First and foremost, it's the right thing to do, right? Like, it's just, transport is a big source of emissions. We've got to reduce our emissions as a society.
Yes.
Uber is already and has aspirations to be an important part of the transport system, and so you can't really have a long-term strategy on that front without a view on how you're going to get to net zero. We now have commitments to be net zero exhaust emissions by 2025 in London, by 2030 in the rest of the UK and Europe and the US, which is our major centres, and then 2040 everywhere in the world. And I think, like lots of other companies, like Hitachi, we think there's a really massive role for business to play in that transition.
I think with COP26 coming up later on this year, Hitachi is really excited to be a principal partner there, and we see it as a real catalyst for governments around the world to renew and reinforce the commitments that they've already made at Paris. And business has a really, really important role to act to support all of those commitments where it can. And Hitachi's doing a lot of work now with electrification, both in terms of the vehicles but also with rail, and it feels that it can make a real difference, which is superb. The next part of the conversation is moving from intent and verbal commitment into how that will translate into actionable goals. I think the targets and the need for the targets are really clear, so there's not really a conversation to be had there. I think what everyone needs to understand is what are we going to do? What will the policy landscape need to look like? What should governments expect from its citizens in order to play their part? And what role can business do to support it as well?